Now, we have with us in the studio the former Deputy President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Amaechi Astugune. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Ajaero.
Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? A number of people must have seen that video of the event that the president of the NLC ought to have attended, and what was going on there. Comments being made and about the fact that the president of the NLC in Nigeria couldn't make it to that meeting. And then, of course, all the issues that are ongoing about that. First of all, your reaction to that comment from a global scene.
Yes, I think from the report and the happenings around Nigeria generally, and it has affected Nigeria Labour Congress. In fact, I would say trade union movement. That very sign was not healthy. Integrity-wise, both as a country, both as organized labor, because whether we like it or not, when trade union of a particular country is doing well, it is viewed and perceived that the country is doing well. And any harassment or assault on institution leaders, it also defines the level of democracy and the rule of law we actually permit as a country. So the way that very invitation excuse me, and arrest was conducted, it did not display professionalism, it did not display respect for rule of law, it did not also show that we actually are willing to get it done better soon. Because when you perceive some things in 2024, in this century, we can register that kind of harassment or system of arrest as though we are referring to a criminal that was on the run. He didn't tell well about Nigeria, not just NLC. So global-wise, it was condemned. It is viral. Even there, they acknowledge that such is a threat to labor voice and it's a threat to democracy. It was widely condemned, and it's unnecessary. That would have been prevented.
Now, so on the one hand, the government said that there was an invitation sent to the NLC president. On the other hand, the NLC is saying no, there was no such invitation. But then there is also the position of the presidency that, look, because of the allegations, no one is above the law. Was it wrong of the federal government to have invited the president of the NLC at all?
Never. Anybody except for immunity purpose must be subject to the law, including NLC president, even 10 times in a day, if that becomes necessary. Nobody can promote a situation of anarchy. When people are above the law, then they are leading themselves. So we are all governed by constitution. But the question is, for any step to be taken, one step would have been taken. It's like the medical field. You explain to your doctor, and they prescribe some basic step to be taken.
Sorry, just so I understand what you're saying. You say no one is above the law.
Never.
So anyone can be invited by the president or by the federal government, any agency of government at any time. So when the police, I think it was, that invited the president of the NLC, previously, to come for a chat, was that out of place?
The invitation was not out of place, and they honored the invitation.
Okay. So, but then there was such a lot of noise made prior to his granting that invitation.
Because of prior step before the invitation, whereby we had a raid at the NLC complex, or call it secretariat. Whether it happened on the second floor, whether it happened on the first floor, that the target, even via media, captured police or DSS or joint task force raid NLC. Thereafter, after 48 hours, information started reflecting that the idea was not NLC, it was a tenant. And upon the invitation or the discovery in their own investigation, NLC was now put on notice for invitation. That was why you see the reaction when people say terrorism allegation. So it created a lot of discourse even before the arrival of NLC to the police. But eventually, he was advised, because you have been invited, responsibly, you need to make yourself available. And which he did. I think he was accompanied by some lawyers to also show that whichever way they want to take it, they are there to possibly grant him bail and charge any matter you want to charge to court. Eventually, that one was treated as though information was not sufficient, evidence was not sufficient to detain him beyond necessary for questioning. Then the next was DSS arresting him on his way to attend international program. That was, how do you reconcile the previous, as if it was the police who did the first invitation, that is now saying, we expect you to have reported on a certain date you didn't come. And that is why we are making this arrest, because more or less you have defaulted. This is a different agency who felt also that they sent invitation, like some part of the story has it, but evidently there is no acknowledgement that has been displayed anywhere. NLC was never in receipt of any invitation. NLC was never invited, and the next was accosted, arrested on your way to your trip. That looked very suspicious. It looked scary to democratic nation, and that is why you see international everywhere, they are commenting, condemning it. Even it's not even a good name for a president, because there are certain things that will happen. People will think the order is from above. And so, considering that there is a change of government or change of leadership in DSS, and the perception I have about the new DG is somebody who don't tolerate nonsense. It means such person must be rooted with the rules of the game. So first is extend your invitation. I know DSS have capacity to know your plan ahead, to know that you're about to leave Nigeria. If you don't have, that is the agency I respect so strong in this country about intelligence. So the capacity to dictate that the president was traveling is something I know at the tip of their table. They should be able to know that he will leave Nigeria. But the question is, before that day of travel, they would have extended even his 3 hours invitation that we need to see you, whereby it's not deferring that very appearance to now go to the airport. It looks like you're escaping. So the arrest will now be corresponding to the invitation. But they didn't do this, and they have just created an impression so ugly about our security system. And I think it can be reformed. Well,
it's interesting that you mentioned the new DG, because the information out there is that the DSS said they extended this invitation that you're talking about. Of course, the NLC is saying that that didn't happen now. So who do Nigerians believe?
No, it's not a matter of believe me or believe them. If NLC has come out open to tell you that they were never invited, the question is DSS has also failed to show proof of invitation. So I think there's remedy attempt to the first initial error. And whether we like it or not, what has happened now will create room for individual party to actually adjust from the area of error, because it's about Nigeria, not just DSS. Whatever DSS does today in the system we operate as democracy, it goes a long way to define us as a nation, including NLC. Their response to invitation also goes a long way to define our belief in democracy. We must lead by example by honoring invitation whenever it occurs. Going with lawyers, it doesn't change appearance. But my own is, when there is invitation, NLC do appear. In this case, there was none.
Now, it's interesting, because there will be about some kind of, I don't know, how do I put this? It's a conundrum of sorts. On the one hand, there are issues between the federal government and the Nigeria Labour Congress. On the other hand, are these allegations of terrorism and all of that? The security agencies say they have certain information that one way or the other indicts, some people who are within the confines of the Labour House. Now, so what would be your advice? I know it will be difficult for you to stand in the middle, but at the same time, you are an industrial relations advisor now, having been former deputy of the NLC. What would be your advice to both parties? Because, like it or not, the issues on the burner cannot just be ignored. What would be your advice to both sides of the table?
It's going to be in the order of approach. There is nobody that we advise federal government not to start strong as the only, as the apex authority that controls and manages the country. The question again is, while doing that, we cannot also forgo the democratic advantage of individuals as citizens of Nigeria. Because democracy has made it possible that, yes, you have the power to do certain things. Yes, I have the right also of defense, of not allowing you to do certain things. So such has to be managed with a very sensitive approach. Is in order that the Nigerian Labour Congress is not an unknown institution. It's an institution that has millions of Nigerians with it. And as such, it's not about Ajaero, it's about Nigerians. So when we talk of workers, we're still referring to Nigerians. So my advice to federal government is, let there be respect for rule of law. Let us see engagement before action. Once you put up engagement before action, Nigerians will even support federal government when they take certain drastic steps. But whereby we eliminate dialogue, we eliminate chance to dialogue, we eliminate opportunity for dialogue, and you act to show that you have the power to do so. The court of law also have the power to curtail certain excess of any of the institutions in Nigeria. So I will also advise Nigerian Labour Congress has always been up to the game by making themselves available whenever invitation for dialogue, invitation for participation in any kind. So I think in the subject matter, more is to federal government, who has the entire powers to control, to act, and to administer. What they have done so far suggests that we need to learn more. And as a management practitioner, I believe that human beings are the most difficult element to manage. And as such, you must deploy excessive wisdom to the extent that your steps are not questionable when we talk about managing others beyond your own cabinet. Because we're talking about another institution that has its own constitution. They are governed by their constitution. Constitution of NLC is also respected by the law. So if NLC was put in place by law, it means they have their own character defined by law. Any attempt to shift them out of the trench, it suggests that intimidation or oppression is about to take place. And you will definitely receive resistance.
Okay. One final one. There are those who believe that the civic space is being shrunk. Do you agree?
It depends on where they are coming from. It depends on the idea.
And they are looking at the arrest of the invitation of the NLC president, the visit to the office of Sarah, amongst other similar issues.
I just hope that we don't have extension of what we have witnessed in the last 2 weeks. Both the nature of arrest, not arrest. Like I said, federal government has power to arrest anybody that is when it's necessary. But whereby arrest is done with impunity, then democracy will question it. And that is why you have the voice of the people can never be silent in democracy. So when we also talk about the visit to Sarah, that visit, which one should come first? It should be the other way around. DSS should not be the one visiting Sarah. Sarah should be the one honoring the invitation of DSS. So that is the area I think the president may show involvement. Because in this country, the system has allowed president to always give directive, even when institutions have their leadership, to manage them. But I think he, being a Democrat, he being somebody who won his election by virtue of democracy, should also know that Nigerians will expect him to preside by recognizing the rule of law. Absolutely. To calling those security agencies to order to respect protocols that respect human. Because in this case, Ajaero right has been infringed. And even Sarah, the reserve right also to contend that very harassed visit, however you put it.
Well, I guess the coming days will let us know what either party is going to do in all of this case. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Amaechi Esugoni is former Deputy President of the Nigeria Labour Congress. He's been with us here in the studio. So, Kayla and Nilta, here we are. Any feedback?